Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. We start our video with a story about a retail worker who was called lazy by a customer just for telling the truth. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Apparently, I'm lazy for not entering Narnia to find her size. For some context, I work in a relatively small retail shop located in a mall. It's one of those boutique-style stores on a corner, so two of our walls are floor-to-ceiling glass windows that give you a lovely full view into the store from the mall walkway. The other two walls are where we display all our merchandise. Everything we sell is right there. Samples are out for display, and the boxed inventory stored in the cupboards below or above each section. There's no secret storage area, no back room filled with excess stock, no mysterious door leading to Narnia where we keep magical overstock. What you see is what we have. That's it. Behind the till is one of those cupboard walls, and the only break in it's a narrow little door, maybe 8 feet tall and barely 6 inches wide. It's technically a closet, but really it's just where we store our ladder, cleaning supplies, and feather duster. Honestly, our smallest employee is the only one who can fit inside without looking like they're trying to climb into a gym locker. So when customers ask us to check the back, we usually just smile, gesture to the layout of the store, and say, "We don't have a back room, but everything we have is out here or stored in these cabinets." Most people accept that with a nod or a shrug and move on, but of course, every so often you get a customer who just won't let it go. Today was one of those days. This woman, mid-40s, full of Karen energy, comes in with her friend and starts browsing. Eventually, she finds a particular item on display and wants a different size. No problem. I check the cabinet below and above where the item is displayed, but no luck. I turn back to her and politely explain, "I'm sorry, it looks like we're out of stock in that size." She gives me the look. You know, the raised eyebrows, the crossed arms, the skeptical head tilt, and asks, "Can you check the back?" Here we go. I launch into the usual response, "We actually don't have a back room. Everything we have is either on display or in the storage cupboards under the products." She doesn't even wait for me to finish before she turns to her friend and says in a not-so-subtle stage whisper, "She's just too lazy to check." Lazy, right. Now, I'd already been on my feet for hours, had skipped lunch because our closing shift called out sick, and had spent the better part of my morning helping a kid pick out a gift for his mom while also keeping a toddler from using our display items as a jungle gym. But sure, lady, I'm lazy. At that point, I decided, fine, I'll check the back. Without breaking eye contact, I turned and walked to the narrow ladder cupboard behind the register. I opened it slowly, reached in, and pulled out our giant, clunky ladder with a satisfying metallic rattle. Then I grabbed the feather duster we keep in there, stepped back, and stood tall. Putting on my best customer service smile, I said sweetly, "I'm terribly sorry for the inconvenience. I just checked the back room, and I can confirm that we don't have any more in that size." Her mouth curled into a tight line. I could see her jaw clench. She didn't appreciate the sarcasm, but since she'd already implied I was lazy, I figured a little flair was well earned. "You don't have to be so rude about it," she snapped. I blinked at her, genuinely baffled. Rude? I hadn't rolled my eyes, hadn't raised my voice, hadn't even given her a snarky tone. I'd literally just checked the back room as requested. But somehow I was the rude one? I didn't argue. I just gave her the same polite smile I'd been wearing the whole time and said, "I'm sorry you feel that way." She huffed and stalked off with her friend in tow, mumbling about customer service and how things used to be better. And honestly, that's just retail for you. You can be polite, helpful, go out of your way to accommodate someone, and still end up being called rude and lazy. But at least I got a good laugh out of it. And hey, that feather duster hadn't seen the light of day in a while. You have to realize that most people just assume that every store has a huge warehouse attached to the public retail section, and that said warehouse is easily 10 times the size of the store. So of course you always have more of everything in the back. And our second story. I'm obviously following customers at a store I don't work at. For context, I work at Build-A-Bear. At the time this story takes place, I was on a 10-minute break, but I was still wearing my uniform as I'm too lazy to take it off and then put it back on 10 minutes later. I decided to spend my break at Five Below. I wandered a bit, but eventually I went to the aisle where they have the Funko figures, as new ones usually get stocked on Friday, and I wanted to see what they had. This location has rather narrow aisles, and given that there were already 2 people in the aisle, I decided to hold off and just stand to the side to wait until the pair had finished their shopping. Apparently not everyone shares my qualms though. As I'm looking through the end cap trying to entertain myself before I look at the figures, I hear, "Excuse me." I look up, but it's just 2 women entering the aisle. I look back at the end cap. Suddenly I hear, "Are you good?" One of the women is addressing me. Figuring they're asking if I want to enter the aisle, I just smile and respond, "Oh no, I'm okay," figuring I'll just wait until they're done looking to slide in. She looks at me and responds, "Oh, okay, I just find it weird that you're watching me when there are so many other customers in the store." My smile falls. "Is she serious right now? I don't work here," I respond simply. "Yes, you do," she insists. "I work at Build-A-Bear." I stare at her with a straight face and point at the bear on my apron. Five Below employees typically wear t-shirts and don't have an apron. She rolls her eyes. "Whatever, it's just weird that you've been watching me since we were in the front of the store. I literally hadn't noticed her before she started talking to me." "I'm not watching you." "Yes, you are. I'm literally just here to look at the Funko figures." At this point, I've had enough, so I just walk past her and do my looking. This interaction literally ruined my whole day. "Sorry you're not the main character, bestie. I'm sorry not everyone's paying attention to you at all times." Ugh. And our next story. The customer who banned herself from 2 stores. I used to work at Byway when it still existed in Ontario. However, every time I walked into any store in the area, people kept assuming I worked there. I didn't realize so many people could remember my face. I'm not sure if this happens to others as well, but it went on for a couple of years even after I stopped working there. One time that really stands out was when I was shopping at the Canadian Tire across the street from the Byway store I worked at. I was holding a cart with a can of paint when a lady walked up and asked where the wrenches were. I replied, "In an old milk crate. I want to get one of those upright toolboxes one day." She said, "Excuse me?" I said, "Gotta go, got things to do," and walked off to continue shopping. As I got close to the cash registers, I noticed the same lady yelling at 3 employees, and she started pointing at me. "There he is, it's him." I stopped, looked at them, and one of the employees said, "Are you talking about this customer?" She started going on about them just trying to cover for their buddy, saying she wanted to talk to the real manager. The manager arrived and said, "You can go, she thought you worked here." The next day, I was at work at Byway walking in for my shift when I saw the same lady. She let out an annoyed huff, walked away, and then came back with my manager. He told her to wait while he talked to me. He followed me to the stockroom and asked me what had happened. I explained that she thought I worked at Canadian Tire and was upset because I hadn't been helpful, yelling at the staff when they couldn't find out who the rude employee was. At this point, he laughed and said he thought I'd set a record for pissing off a customer before I even managed to punch in. What we didn't realize was that she followed us into the stockroom. We heard, "Aren't you going to do something about it?" We both turned around and he said, "No, and you're not allowed back here." She responded, "I'll never shop here again." He replied, "How about your father?" She said, "You'll never see us again." He looked at me and said, "Thank you. You figured out how to get them out of my store." She stomped off and I saw her again and again after that. Apparently, she and her father were always a pain to deal with. I'll never understand why entitled people think the threat of never shopping here again is such a blow to the store. Why should the store care if one problematic customer decides not to shop there? Do they really expect business to dip if they're not there? And then they don't even stick to their threats and come back as if nothing happened. Sure, they might try to pretend they don't notice you, but still, the egos of some people. And our last story. Karen's big construction. We had a brand new asphalt driveway installed in the spring of 2020. It wasn't cheap, but it made a huge difference. Clean lines, smooth surface, added value. I was proud of how it turned out. Everything was done properly, graded, leveled, compacted. It looked great. Then in 2021, the neighbor decided to tear down his entire house and build new. That alone would have been fine, except that Karen, the woman who owns the property, didn't seem to care where her contractors worked or what damage they caused. From the start, the project was chaos. Trucks parked wherever they wanted, debris blowing into our yard, dust clouds choking the air. But the real issue was the driveway. Karen's old house had been built up right to the property line. When they demoed the old structure and started excavation for the new foundation, the crew cut into the edge of our asphalt, our property. They needed room to move equipment, apparently, and instead of asking or working around it, they just carved into our side. On top of that, construction debris and equipment left large gouges and oil stains across the surface. By the time the house was framed and the dust settled, about 30% of the driveway, the section running along the shared property line, was chipped, stained, and visibly damaged. This wasn't cosmetic. It was a noticeable downgrade from what had been a pristine, black, professionally installed surface. I approached Karen about it, politely at first. "Hey," I said, "we need to talk about the driveway. Your crew came over the line and caused some real damage." She blinked like it was the first she'd heard of it. "Oh, really? I didn't notice anything." I pulled out photos, before and after comparisons, clear as day. "Well," she said, "maybe you just need to seal it." I told her sealing wasn't an option. The driveway had never been sealed, and I didn't want to start now just to patch over damage I didn't cause. I explained that sealing just the damaged section would look mismatched and unnatural. Repairing only that part and sealing the rest would end up costing nearly the same as just redoing the entire driveway. I wanted it returned to its original condition, not patched, not hidden. "That seems excessive," she said. "The rest of it looks fine." "It was fine," I said, "until your crew cut into it and ran heavy equipment over it." She tried to deflect, claimed her contractors didn't cross the line, claimed the chips and stains weren't caused by her site. I showed her the property survey and walked her through the footage on my security camera. Her crew absolutely encroached. You could see the moment one of their skid steers scraped the edge of our pavement. At that point, she went quiet. I gave her 2 estimates from local companies, both quoted around the same amount, one for sectioned repair and sealing, and the other for a full tear-out and replacement. The difference, less than £600. I told her I was willing to go with the more expensive option on my own dime if she covered the damage cost. She refused. "We'll offer to seal it," she said flatly, "that's all." I sent her a formal notice. She ignored it. So I filed a property damage claim. It wasn't a fast process, but I came armed with everything: high-resolution photos, timestamps, survey records, contractor estimates, and security footage. I even had a construction consultant write a short statement about the cost difference between partial repair/seal versus full redo and the long-term durability of each. Karen came to mediation already annoyed. She rolled her eyes, called it a cosmetic disagreement, and said I was trying to milk her for a new driveway. But the mediator didn't see it that way. They looked at the evidence and pointed out that the damage was avoidable and directly linked to her construction project. She didn't even deny that her crew had crossed the line. She just insisted that sealing should be good enough. The final decision, she was ordered to pay 70% of the full replacement cost based on the scope of the damage and the fact that a full replacement was deemed the most consistent and effective repair. I covered the remaining 30%, which I was happy to do just to have it over with. The new driveway was poured 2 months later, clean, even, flawless, just like it had been before Karen's construction circus came to town. She hasn't spoken to us since. I'm okay with that. Wow, this was a great story. Seriously satisfying from start to finish. Now you've got a flawless new driveway, peace in your yard, and the eternal Karen silence. Honestly, that's a triple win. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.